wanted to focus today on talking about issues around dehumanisation. The reason why I wanted to talk about this topic at this time is at the moment it's June 2020. We've recently witnessed the murder of George Floyd in the United States. We've seen the protests that have swept across the country and the protests that are happening in the UK. At the same time, when I've been on social media, I've also been seeing comments from the white community that are saying things like, oh, police brutality happens to everybody, happens whether you're black or white, and giving examples of where white people have suffered either at the hands of the police or at the hands of black people or other ethnic minorities. So the reason I wanted to speak about dehumanisation is because obviously when we see these extreme cases, such as the police officer that killed George Floyd, obviously and rightly so, people are up in arms and they're angry, and there are loads of examples. If you look on the internet, there's so many examples of this, so many examples of police brutality, so many examples in the United States of stop and search and things escalating. I wanted to add something into the mix here, which is this notion of dehumanisation. So dehumanisation basically means denying the humanity of a group in society and equating its members to animals. So things like vermin, insects, rats, that type of thing, particularly in the media and also without condemnation. So let's think of some examples then of dehumanisation. If we focus on issues around the black community, if we go back to all the way back to the Windrush generation, so the people that were invited to the United Kingdom because we needed people to work, they arrived, they went, obviously what's the first thing you do? You go and you look for somewhere to stay. They go to look for somewhere to stay, and there's signs up in some houses and some bed and breakfasts saying no blacks, no Irish, no dogs. So clearly we can see there the dehumanisation where people are placed in the same category as dogs. Another example, during the Second World War, the Nazis referred to Jews as rats. And a huge problem arises here. You can say the insults. What do we say? Oh, you know, sticks and stones may break my bones, but names will never hurt me. But the thing is, names do hurt. And if we look at Stanton's work, Stanton and his colleagues came up with, or they did research and they found when genocide occurs, there are generally it goes through 10 steps. So society goes through 10 steps before genocide of a group, a minority group usually, faces genocide. The fourth stage of genocide is dehumanisation. So it is this name calling, because it's reducing people to being thought about as being similar to animals. So we might think, okay, well, we've moved on a long way now, but we still see things like at football, when there's black players, the insults, bananas being thrown on the field. We still have a rhetoric around immigration, with David Cameron called immigrants that were crossing the Mediterranean swarms, which is comparing them basically to insects. Other people in the media have been clearer in their use of dehumanisation. For example, Katie Hopkins compared immigrants to cockroaches, saying that just like cockroaches, they can't even be killed by a nuclear bomb. But if we come back to this idea that dehumanisation is the fourth stage of genocide, we can see how completely dangerous this is. And when we hear that people from white backgrounds are comparing their experiences to black people and people from other ethnic minorities, it's not really the same. It's not really the same because it's difficult to think of where this point about dehumanisation has taken place within Western countries and against white people. We don't really hear the same rhetoric. So a white person might go out there and they might face police brutality. They might be stopped by the police. They might have a terrible time. They might, they might say, okay, now I face the same problems as the black person. But the point is, the white person doesn't go out in the morning being self-conscious about their own skin. They don't go out thinking that maybe there'll be a problem. They don't go out with a constant thing in the back of their mind of, maybe if I go to this certain place, I'm going to get stopped and questioned. If I drive a nice car, maybe I'm going to get stopped by the police. And there's a recent example that I saw on social media was a lady who fell asleep in, I think it was the university library. And she was a black lady and the police were called. And she believes that if she was white and she fell asleep, that it wouldn't have been a problem. Why? Because we can make the assumption that the person would have felt that she fitted in and she just fell asleep. So it's this idea as well that going around with people being suspicious about you all the time, feeling that people are waiting for you to make a mistake or thinking that you're in the wrong place and so on. So it's not always about these huge injustices that happen. People are worn down. They're worn down by facing this issue. They're worn down by the process of dehumanisation. And it's really important as well that people remember the danger of dehumanisation, that it is the fourth stage of genocide. And it is something that needs to be addressed. It's not just a matter of name calling and something that should be ignored. It's all tied up within this bigger picture. And this is why we can see what's happened with Black Lives Matters and the emotions that people are feeling. Okay, well, thank you for listening and hopefully see you soon.